Good afternoon and early evening, Franklin Township. Welcome to the, what is the date? July 26th edition of the Franklin Reporter and Advocate News Hour. I'm Bill Bowman, the co-publisher and editor of the Franklin Reporter. And you are?
And Bill is a little delayed, Franklin. It's not your television. I'm PJ Parker. I'm the Franklin Reporter and Advocate, also co-publisher as well as the advertising director. And we're always so happy to be able to offer this medium to you as one more feature of the Franklin Reporter and Advocate publications.
Yes.
And tonight we have...
as PJ mentioned, I am a little delayed. I'm using some old technology here, so I'm gonna rely on PJ to take the reins on this one for the most part. Today we have a couple of doctors.
Your sound is coming across very marbled.
Okay, you know what, PJ? Why don't you just take over? You do the introductions.
Okay. All right. Without our personalities here, the personalities who we will be speaking with tonight are Dr. Nick Solomon, who is a Franklin son, and why we're discussing things with him tonight is that he's the newly appointed high school principal for Franklin High School, having just left his post at the Hamilton Street Middle School in the same capacity as principal. He, of course, takes over the reins left by Frank Schmiel, who has gone to Princeton, and I can't think of anyone else who could fill the shoes of Frank Schmiel better than Dr. Nick Solomon. He and his wife, Rebecca Solomon, who is also a Franklin principal in the Franklin Park School, I believe, the elementary school, as well as Darren and Adrian Plummer, also tremendous Franklin citizens in their varying capacities, have founded the Warriors for Life Scholarship Fund, who that organization chooses many students from within the Franklin community, not based strictly on scholastic aptitude or prowess, but on citizenship, talent, ambition, desire to learn, and so much more. Nick Solomon is just a tremendous force in Franklin Township, and I think we're very privileged to have him in the helm now at Franklin High School. We're also joined by School Superintendent Dr. John Ravally. His resume is arms long as well. And between the two of them, we hope to have a really good discussion, not only about what Nick's plans and what Nick's vision is for taking the school forward, but the entire community as it's involved in new COVID regulations and how best to be preparing for this upcoming school year. So we do invite your comments and your questions. Please type them in the comments bar. If you have something that you'd like specifically addressed to either, please say that. And now here's where Bill's going to have to assume those responsibilities because I can't see the comments from my
not
end.
a problem.
So can you hear me, Bill?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, all right. Now I can hear you and I can see your lips moving, but they're not necessarily syncing with the words that are coming from your lips.
It's like an old Godzilla movie.
I was thinking more like Laurel and Hardy or something like that.
Okay.
Anyway.
Well, let's not delay. Let's bring our guests on.
Let's bring our guests upon. Yes.
Hello to the doctors.
Yes,
hello,
we have
hello.
Two doctors.
Hello.
Yes, both Dr. Nick Solomon, the man of the moment, and Dr. John Ravally, also a man of the moment. Dr. Nick Solomon, as we introduced you, you are now the brand new Franklin High School principal, having also been the middle school Hamilton Street Middle School principal. And we just mentioned that in the absence of Frank Schmiel, those shoes were mighty big to fill. And again, I can't think of anyone who's going to fill them, probably outgrow them in 3 seconds with your skills, your background, your love for children, your love for the system, and the education that goes on in Franklin Township. So if you would, as well as I don't want to not introduce Dr. John Ravally, who is our school's superintendent, and together we hope to be discussing what the plans are for the coming school year on not just your vision and your plan specifically, Dr. Solomon, but how we're going to integrate everything that's happening currently, new COVID regulations, and the anticipation of we're going right into a brand new school year where we had one set of expectations that appears to be about to be altered a little bit. So anyway, Dr. Solomon, tell us a little bit about who you are and what your plans are going to be.
Well, good evening, everyone. And as PJ mentioned, I am Dr. Solomon. Thank you for having me on this evening, allowing me to speak on this platform. For those that do not know me, I'm going into my 20th year in education. I am a born and raised in Franklin Township, graduated from Franklin High School, class of 98, proud alumnus of Franklin High School, graduate of Tennessee Tech University with a bachelor's in special education. I have 2 masters, one in curriculum instruction from University of Phoenix, second educational leadership from Seton Hall University. In 2019, I successfully defended my dissertation from Seton Hall University. So I am now Dr. Solomon as of December of 2019. Excited about that. And my study was on chronic absenteeism.
Wow.
I spent 20 years in education, as I mentioned. Spent my first year in education in Baltimore, Maryland. Then I spent 10 years as a teacher, special education teacher in math and science at Franklin Middle School. Spent the last 4 of those years as a dean of students. Then in 2013, I became a vice principal at Sampson G. Smith School. I spent 4 years, approximately 4 years, as a vice principal at Sampson G. Smith when it was an intermediate school. And in 2017, I was named principal of Franklin Middle School, which later was renamed as Franklin Middle School at Hamilton Street Campus. And as you mentioned, on July 1st, I was appointed as principal of Franklin High School. So I'm a proud alumnus of this wonderful high school. So the motivation is personal to me. The work is personal to me. I not only represent the students that are currently there, but also represent all of the graduates of Franklin High School. There's a lot of strong alumnus that have attended Franklin High School, and I'm proud to be at the helm to not only carry out the vision for the current staff and students, but also to ensure the Franklin alumni is proud of the work that's moving forward. So what's the work ahead of me, or what's my vision? It's quite simple. It's very important. Eventually we're going back in front of students in September. As of today, who knows what's going to happen, but as of today, the vision is to ensure that we have a safe learning environment, right? That's important. We have to, all principals across, every high school in America, that's got to be on the forefront to ensure that there's a safe learning environment. And with that, I'll be aligned with the state, as well as the direction that Dr. Ravally will provide for our school administrators in the district. Secondly, it's very important to me to build a positive family school culture, right? I think that's important. I think that's what I strive to do at Franklin Middle School, and I think we were successful in doing that. And that's just putting our staff and students first, right? And coming to school and being able to be present with our students, being willing to have leadership in the building, is willing to roll up their sleeves and do the work, right? Making sure we provide great opportunities for our students and staff, so people are excited about coming to the school. So it's important to build a positive family school culture. Next on my list that I talked about at our principal meet and greet back on July 13th was to, obviously, I think this goes without said, having a quality education. I know that's cliche, right? Every administrator wants that, but I want to take the time to look at what we're doing and build on top of that, making sure that we offer, a variety of courses, rigorous courses to make sure our students are prepared. And the last 2 points I touched on in terms of vision, well, it kind of goes hand in hand with that quality education, but to be more specific is to make sure we provide diverse social and social and learning opportunities, excuse me. So, we have such a variety of students, diverse group of students there. It's important that we not only meet their interest in the classroom, but outside the classroom as well, right? We have a generation that's involved in so many different things, and it's important that we're able to meet them where they are at. And last but not least, I think it's vital, that we prepare our each student to be prepared for secondary education, post-secondary education, right? And my goal is for every student who is enrolled as a high school freshman that they graduate wanting to attend some type of post-secondary institution. And it could be a 4-year school, it could be a 2-year school, it could be a vocational school, right? But at the end of the day, we expose our students to these different learning opportunities beyond high school. And that's a task, right? So you're going to hear me talk a lot about college and career readiness. That'll be something that it's near and dear to me, and I think it's important. It's actually a component of how high schools are evaluated, and I want to make sure we look at that data and we target in on areas that we can grow in, and we build on areas that we're already successful in. So I want to make sure that that's at the forefront, because at the end of the day, it's about students graduating high school, right? And making sure they're prepared beyond that, right? That's the broad scope of it. But what are we doing within those 4 years is where it gets detailed. And, I want to make sure we keep that in mind and we put that out, put that on the table for our school community to understand. So in a nutshell, that's where I'm at. But there'll be 2 slogans that I'll be talking about all the time. And something that I've been saying for a while is, what is your why, right? What's your purpose? That'll help drive some of these items that I've listed as my vision, but also to be present, right? Especially during this time coming after this pandemic, we have to be willing to go to the extra mile with our students. And I say we as a staff, as administration, be able to roll up our sleeves and make sure we really understand what our students are going through, understand how they learn. So we want to be present, and that'll be something that I'll be using, throughout my tenure.
Let me ask you this: when the students walk in through the doors in September, is there going to be anything new? Are you going to spring anything new on them?
Well, the focus right now really is to make sure the building's ready to go. Coming in July 1, what's new is going to be tough to say right now. It's going to be making sure the building is tight, make sure the building is ready to go. Of course, you're going to hear me talk about college and career readiness. Of course, our staff is going to hear us talk about data. I think that might be new for them in terms of how I present the data. So you're going to hear me talk about an annual school plan where we disaggregate data. So we're working on plans right now. But again, when I start on July 1, my focus, the initial part of the summer, which I call the phase 1, is to be organized and get structured, right? I had to learn what the high school was about. I have to learn the players. I have to understand what needs to be done. And that's what we've done in this phase 1. This phase 2 now, I kind of call it this late July, early August, is really developing plans that we want to put in place. So, of course, we're going to be talking about social emotional learning. Something that's not new, but it's something that we're going to emphasize more just because of coming off a pandemic year, right? Mm-hmm. So that's vital. And what that looks like on the high school level. So we're developing plans like that. We're developing the college and career readiness plans, right, to carry out the vision that I have. We're going to be looking at data, right? And so I can understand where the strengths and weaknesses are beyond what you see that's reported. We want to delve in deeper to understand, how our students in each cohort is learning down to the standard, right? So that's some time it's going to take some time to truly understand that. So that's going to be new. That's going to be kind of behind the scenes. But in terms of what's new when they walk in, it's going to just look clean. We're going to be ready to go, wherever it looks like. So that's kind of, to answer your question, then what's new is it's going to be the organization and structure on what we're doing behind the scenes.
So stuff, nothing, no new regulations or anything that students are going to have to be concerned about. It's all going to be behind the scenes.
God bless you.
Well, I think again, if there's new, obviously, again, in terms of COVID regulations and things of that nature, I'm sure there's going to be some new things in place. But again, I'm going to follow the lead of Dr. Ravally and the Department of Education. And if that's something that we're going to make new, of course, that will be communicated at the appropriate time. But right now, none of those items are completely finalized until we get clear direction.
Right. I guess I should have been more specific. I'm aside from COVID stuff.
Okay.
No new policies or procedures within the school that students need to know about.
Right. I think that again, I'm not coming in changing policies. Again, I started 26 days ago. My job is to kind of learn any new policies and making sure we are carrying them out, effectively, making sure we enforce them, right? But in terms of me coming in, making things new, I think that's time. Give me some time, and if there's a need, I would certainly make those changes. But right now, it's about understanding where we are and making sure we're ready to go for September.
Okay.
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that tonight's program is brought to you by Franklin Township Schools PTSO President Nick Meglio, who is also a broker and associate realtor of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Fox and Roach Realtors in Princeton Junction. And he can be reached at 732-828-9403 or 609-799-2020. I'm sure all of you know who Nick DeMeglio is. He's a very present face in our community, but he also serves the Franklin Township community in a real estate capacity. So please patronize his business on that level. And as we move forward now, Bill, did you have any more questions of Dr. Solomon?
No, actually, at the moment, I think he had a really nice segue into Dr. Ravally.
That was easy.
In terms of what we might expect, what he thinks might be in the offing in terms of the COVID regulations and whatnot that we might expect come September.
Yeah, so interestingly enough, the question you asked, what might be a little bit different this year than last, and the first thing that comes to mind is, as of right now, and the governor repeated that this morning, or actually earlier this afternoon in his 1 o'clock briefing, that right now the expectation is that all public school districts will be open full day, full in person in September. So I think one of the things that's going to be a little bit different is that, last year we were about 50-50 at our elementary schools, but at the high school, which is what we're focused on here right now, we were about 60-40, 60% of the students home virtual, 40% in person. So 100% of our students will be expected to be in person. Because the other thing the governor reiterated when he was questioned was that there will be no virtual option. And that's as it stands right now. As it stands right now, it's full day in person with no virtual option, even given the numbers. And a lot of what the governor talked about in his briefing today was that, yes, indeed, the numbers seem to be rising, but a good portion of those numbers are amongst those who are not vaccinated. And although, there are students that are certainly not vaccinated, there are staff members that are not vaccinated, there's still time. And he's still encouraging, and so are school districts, encouraging folks to become vaccinated in time for September. And at the high school level, students are eligible for that. We also would encourage that folks do that so that we can safely return. But yeah, so that will be a major change from the last 15 months, right? 15 months ago, there were no students in our building, and last year there were 40% of our students. But as of September 1, welcome, Dr. Solomon. You will have 100% of your students back.
So can I ask you this?
And I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to it.
And so am I. Yes, sir.
I think the students are.
Let me ask you this.
The parents are as well.
Well, maybe some are, maybe some aren't. I mean, now that obviously you've communicated to the parents that it's going to be 100% in-person learning, have you experienced anything where parents are taking their kids out of the district and opting maybe for in what do they call that? She's homeschooling.
Remote.
Yeah, no, I've not. I mean, I guess that's very possible, but they would have to be signing out through the high school in order to do that. And I don't know that Dr. Solomon has recognized a sharp increase in that. I've not been made aware that there's a sharp increase in the amount of folks choosing to homeschool. Because even if you do choose to homeschool in the state of New Jersey, although there's not a whole lot required of you, you still do transfer to homeschool. So you still submit a letter apprising the district that you are selecting to homeschool. But no, we've not had that. And please understand, we are going to do everything we can and everything that's within our power to keep students as safe as possible. That's paramount is student safety, and we're preparing now and doing everything we can, and we're listening closely to the governor, and we'll make changes as the Department of Education provides more guidance. But for those interested, there is a document. I don't know, I may have mentioned this at a recent board meeting, but folks maybe haven't gotten wind of it. There is a document called the Road Forward. So last year it was the Road Back, right? And so there was a Road Back document that served as a guide for districts. The DOE released a document just a few weeks back, probably less than 2 weeks back, and the document is titled the Road Forward document, where it does provide some guidance, but it, again, clearly states that you will offer a full day in-person program, and that remote learning, as of today, and the governor was pretty clear on that when he answered questions today as well. Things might and could change depending on where we are in a few weeks, but as of today, we're to really follow that document and plan accordingly. So social distance last year was 3 foot in the document that they released. It's down to what the CDC is recommending now, 3 foot. Masks are highly recommended, and we are going to stick with that too, that masking be highly recommended. And we're actually even going to go a step further and tell parents that if there's a good reason or rationale why you wouldn't want a child mask, we're going to ask you to submit a letter to the principal. And not that you won't have that option, because obviously the governor and the state has given you that option, but we are going to ask that folks cooperate. And one thing, though, that is clear, because it is difficult to really, buses are fairly contained. So even in the Road Forward document, it's very clear that if your child rides a bus, your child will have a mask. And there may be other portions in the building where whether you want your child to have a mask on in class or not, we're likely going to require it. And I'm putting ourselves out there a little bit early on this, but I do think, especially at the high school, in the hallways, at lockers, it'd be very difficult for us to manage a 3 foot social distance, as you could well imagine, when a bell rings and kids move about. So we may go a little step further with regard to wearing a mask in the hallways and at the lockers at the secondary level. But I will tell you, and our students, and I speak to them now, if any are listening, and I'm sure Nick, or Dr. Solomon, you will attest to this. Our students were fantastic.
Yes.
Last school year, from pre-K students up through 12th graders. If they were in our building, they did what they were supposed to do. We were so proud of them, and I wouldn't assume that anything would change. They recognize the importance following through and doing what's going to keep everybody safe. So.
So it's just an encouragement to get vaccinated and an encouragement to wear masks. You can't
But not
mandate.
mandated.
You can't mandate vaccinations.
We're told we can at this point. Obviously a private institution has a little more flexibility than a public institution, but it's our understanding that that's not possible, especially when now we do mandate certain vaccinations, but that's promulgated in code. This is not a vaccine that's promulgated in the code. My assumption or my understanding is that down the road might be, but likely after it comes out of the trial or test or emergency approval phase. But as of today, we're under the understanding that that's not possible as a public school district.
Well,
There was news today that
vaccination is slated thus far to have full approval in September, followed by Moderna.
Yes, would still need to be codified for us.
Yeah.
We follow the code, and it would have to be included in those mandated vaccinations, which it's not as of today. But we definitely would highly encourage that folks do it if they're.
Do you see any potential for separation between vaccinated and non-vaccinated?
I don't foresee that. I think that'd be really tough for us. I think that would be really tough for us. I mean, a school, and I said this last year, schools are not, schools are places where people come together, not stay apart. And, that's the challenge for us is.
Did you go to high school in the 70s?
Yeah. Well, I think folks came together then too. I think that's how we're built. We're built to collaborate and come together and work together. And, I think that's part of the challenge. So I don't anticipate that, but I do anticipate that we're going to do everything we can to maintain that distance at a reasonable level, right? So if it's 3 feet, then it's 3 feet that we're going to want to keep folks apart if possible.
So the classrooms,
other mitigating strategies in place, like the mask.
Right. So the classrooms will be set up with the desks 3 feet apart, or there'll be a 3 foot. Yeah, similar to last year. Okay, and that's district wide, right? That's not just the high school.
That's district wide. That's correct.
Okay, and then so when the kids are in class, masks will be strongly encouraged. But you're thinking that things are going on that when that bell rings, they mask up, and when they're in the hallway, they're masked up, and they're going to the lockers, and then when they get back. When they get to the next class, and if they want, they can take the mask off, right?
Well, not if they want. If their parent requests it, I mean, we're still going to encourage it. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
what about
at this point?
Yeah. So how will you deal with cafeteria time?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, and that really is the challenge with offering a full day program. So.
And gym.
Well, gym can be fairly well structured, and we had a really good program last year. Sean Thomas is our PE supervisor, and our PE folks work really hard together to do the kinds of activities that we can keep folks apart and not share things. And a lot of that will still take place. So, but lunch is always the challenge, right? And there's no bigger challenge than lunch at the high school. So I'm glad we've got the good doctor with us, because that's one of the first things I told him is, again, welcome. You're going to have, 100% of your kids back. And by the way,
Right.
we'll have 3 lunch periods with about 700 kids at lunch.
Yes.
So probably at the high school, it is going to be the biggest challenge. And I know that Dr. Solomon and his crew of administrators have been constantly thinking about it. Obviously, we're talking about multiple locations, right? You're not going to all fit in the cafeteria. That's just not going to happen, and be able to keep a safe distance apart. So even though our
schedules, I'm imagining.
Even though our cafeteria is very large, it's still not going to be large enough. So I know that Dr. Solomon is looking for alternatives, the courtyard on pleasant days, the auditorium, and go ahead, Dr. Solomon.
Yeah, I mean, just that, utilizing multiple locations. What I've learned already, we've not only used the cafeteria in the past, we've also used the events lobby. So that's also already been an eating place. We'll definitely look to take advantage of our beautiful courtyard, actually working on some things with our purchase manager in the district now to make sure that we have enough seating and things of that nature. So we also have the ability to use the media center. We can utilize some gym space as well. So we're fortunate enough to have a large facility at Franklin High School where you could spread out some students. We just want to finalize some details exactly where and when we will do it. But I would love to take advantage of the courtyard as a nice large outdoor space as an option.
Okay. We do have a question from Jennifer Vargas. She asks, will you continue to require health screenings daily? And how will you handle cases of a common cold and clearing kids to return to school after having symptoms? Who wants to take that one?
Well, I can, because we've dealt with it all year, and that won't change. As far as pre-screening goes, we've not made a final determination on temperature taking at the doorway, although logistically that will become much more challenging if we tried and attempted to do that. But I think that's also going to be dependent on where we are in late August, whether that's a strategy that we implement. Pre-screening, I mean, at the end of the day, we're going to ask our principals to constantly remind our families, if you have the following symptoms, stay home. So, what we found is that really is what the pre-screening forms do anyway. It's just a constant reminder, and we think that a verbal constant reminder may be more powerful, and certainly something that folks will listen to. And then the other thing is, I will tell you, second to none, and if you've not heard me say this 1,000 times this past school year, we have the best medical team that anyone could possibly ever want. We have a fabulous team of nurses. We have a lead nurse and an assistant lead nurse that have done a fantastic job. They're all highly trained. They all know the ins and outs of this horrible pandemic and this horrible disease, and they will be the ones to make the determination on who leaves our district and who comes back and when they come back. And it all is dependent upon testing. So a lot of it is upon testing. And if you're not testing, it depends on where we are within a regional matrix. There's that green, there's the yellow. We're yellow right now, by the way. There's orange, and then there's red. And that really dictates how many days you have to be out, when you can return, whether a positive test makes a difference, a negative test makes a difference. So all of that will be, again, determined by the lead nurse, the assistant lead nurse, working with their team of nurses throughout the building. So they will be communicating directly with the parents, as they did last year.
That
Speaking of testing,
the rapid testing.
Yeah, speaking of that,
somebody could.
Speaking of testing, those our faithful readers of the Franklin Reporter Advocate will know that the district is going to be taking some strides in terms of testing. For the few of those who don't read the FRA, Dr. Ravally, can you talk about what's on the offing for August 15th?
Sure. Well, actually, two opportunities. I'm going to spring an additional one on you that I forgot to mention before or in a previous board meeting. Well, the first one is breaking news. Yes. The first one is we were fortunate to work with the Somerset County Health Department and secure 3 antigen rapid test machines. So we're going to spread those through the district, and what we're anticipating, obviously, one will be located at our largest school, most populated school, which is Dr. Solomon's school, the high school. The second, we're thinking, we'll share between our 2 second most populated largest campuses, and that's our middle school campuses, and located at one campus or the other. Because we can easily get kids to and from. And obviously a parent needs to be present when you're testing anyway, so it would come upon pickup when we did that. And then the third machine we're talking about this southeastern corner of town, putting it down in that area. And it would be reserved for students and parents who agreed to have an antigen test. Now, we know that an antigen test is not as reliable as a PCR test, or isn't, according to my understanding, you don't really become a confirmed COVID case without a PCR test. However, it is informative and another strategy to utilize. And my understanding is that if anything, it would give you a false positive more often than a false negative, meaning that, okay, that would be of a more conservative approach, right? You test positive and you weren't necessarily positive, but you had some of the symptoms. So you ended up being out longer than not. But the more conservative approach certainly is the better in this case. So we signed on to receive 3 of those machines. We're getting them delivered August 15th. Our nurses, or our lead nurse and our assistant lead nurse and our director of pupil personnel services, Dr. Sofield, have all undergone training on how to utilize the machine. They're going to turnkey that once we get the machines to the rest of the medical staff. Dr. Kelly is our school doctor. He's on board. And then the breaking news piece of this is the Department of Education. The Department of Education recently offered the opportunity for districts to become involved with them if we wanted to pilot some kind of testing program, where they then may offer some resources for you to secure even additional kinds of testing equipment. They haven't released any other information. They sent us a memo and they provided us with a survey. Dr. Sofield and her medical team took advantage of that, submitted. So I don't know if that'll go anywhere, but there may be an opportunity there for us as well. But the three antigen machines, I'll call them rapid test machines, have been promised. My understanding is they're sitting in the county right now, and they're scheduled to be delivered on August 15th with the test medium to be able to utilize the machines, at which point we'll deploy them and get them ready to go.
So how's that going to work? A kid in high school during the course of the day develops a headache, and they go to the school nurse, and they have to have pre-approval, I guess, to get tested. Is that the
Well, you
framework?
have to actually have a parent present, is my understanding. And what would happen is we have isolation spaces. So if the nurse determines that you need to be isolated because you're potentially positive, so a headache may not necessarily do it. I mean, it's all up to our medical staff. They would offer that opportunity to a parent when a parent arrives. They obviously, parent or guardian, you have a child in the isolation space, and what we do is we make a phone call to you, and let's say it's Dr. Solomon. Dr. Solomon, you need to come and pick up your daughter. She's not feeling well. She seems to be exhibiting signs, and she's got, a couple of the symptoms on the checklist. We would highly encourage she go for testing. And by the way, we have this antigen machine that will give us a rapid test. When you arrive, we can do that for you, and at least you'll leave here with some kind of understanding of where you stand. And then they would likely go ahead, the nurse would likely go ahead and encourage a PCR test on top of that just to confirm. Mm-hmm. And again, the state, would encourage that as well. And then we go from there. But in order to test students, you have to have parents present. There's some paperwork that goes along with it, is so we've been told.
Isn't there always? So what's involved in this test? What do you have to do? Is it a nose swab or a cheek swab?
No, I believe it's the nose. I believe it is the I did not go through the training, so I'm speaking a little blind here, but my initial understanding was it's an antigen nose swab test. But I don't know if you recall back in March, April, and May when this initially began. Those were pretty lengthy little swabs, if you ever had it done. My understanding is these are a little bit different. That we've learned a lot more, and so it's not as invasive as the original tests. And there may be a cheek swab option as well, but I believe it's a nasal antigen test.
Okay. Yeah, those initial, they called them brain ticklers, didn't they?
Yes. And my understanding with the it's amazing how much we've learned over time. My understanding with the cheek swab test is, that increases the inaccuracy if it is just cheek swab because you can't eat so many hours before, and
Right.
there's a lot of other things that come into play, which is why they stick with the nasal route.
Mhm.
But
Same
Well,
with
in
again,
the nasal, there've been so many variations with that. Single nostril, double nostril, high up, halfway up. So there've been a lot of variations in it. The one that seems to have been the one that's the most revealing, the most accurate, is the one that Bill was just referring to, is the brain, because it goes all the way up in your sinus cavities. And that just seems to be the most effective right now. Even there were similar problems with the saliva test. And
Yes.
I had one of those. I've had every kind of test you can think of.
we had actually researched some of that on our own saliva testing. There was a group that had actually right here out of Rutgers that had a program that we had investigated, because we were looking for something for next year, obviously. But then this came about, and we wanted to take advantage of it because it seemed to make sense. And our own Department of Health, local Department of Health, that is Somerset County, is partnering with us on it. So we're pretty excited about the opportunity to be able to offer that at least.
Well, the caveat with the saliva as well as the cheek swab is the instruction to those who are getting tested that you cannot have eaten or drunk something or smoked or chewed or whatever. And I found that when I went for that test, no one was instructing anyone to that effect. So you wonder, is there an efficacy at all with that kind of testing unless there's that kind of screening?
Makes it much more challenging, especially when students are in play.
Mm-hmm.
See, Bill will be out. He's drinking now.
Well, there's milk. If mother was a cow. Anyway.
Oh, we should stop right there, don't you think?
Yeah. Right. You give anything else?
Stopping right there. I am losing power. I don't know what's wrong with my cable. I'm going to have to connect another device to this. So if I lose you all, I will be back. I'm going to need another link, Bill, sent to the other device.
No.
And I'll be right back. I'm down to less than where I should be.
Go ahead.
I'll be right back.
I'll just stress, Mr. Bowman, that we are hanging tough and following the guidance as closely as we can, because what we keep hearing is, this is what the department keeps telling us is as of now. So, you can imagine that we're waiting to see what, when you're getting constantly reminded as of now, that's just an indication. Be ready for something later on. So
it's been as of now. Yeah, it's been as of now for like 18 months, right?
Yes. Yes.
So, right, yeah. So you've been running a summer program, if I recall, if I have this correct, to help or make an attempt at making up for, and I can't remember the phrase, the education
learning
gap?
recovery.
Yes. So how's that going?
It's going well. We've had on the occasion, obviously attendance varies, but I know that we've had over 1,000 students who in one way, shape, or form would connected to a program, be it an elementary special education program, an elementary general ed program, a special education academy, one of our secondary programs. We've had Special Olympics here, working with students on all kinds of other types of opportunities, just to bring some normal routine back into things, so it's gone pretty well. I mean, we've had kids who have had summer colds and who have been sick. We've not had a really high incident case. I think our first, we're actually ending this Thursday. It's it was a 4-week long program. And I believe we did get our first incident, our first confirmed case. Again, breaking news. Our first confirmed case today. At
for the summer
level.
At the what level?
I believe at the elementary level.
Okay. Wow. Here we go.
But
let me ask you this, Doctor. Yeah, I know, right? Dr. Solomon, as a building principal, as a brand new building principal who's just really getting, moving into your office, what kind of a challenge does this learning gap, what kind of a challenge do you think this learning gap is going to present your staff when kids walk in September?
It's going to present a huge challenge. And I think that we as a administrative unit have thought about this already, collectively as a secondary administrator. So we've been developing or training our staff before the school year ended on, how to support our students through differentiation techniques, talk to our staff about social emotional learning, the importance of that. So I think one thing I believe with teachers, good teachers know how to meet students where they're at, right? And we have to remind our staff about that. We have to meet them where they are and build them up, right? And we're trained to do that, and I think we will continue to do that. I think that on a secondary level, we've generated or created courses that support learning loss naturally, right? We have programs such, as essential courses or conceptual science courses or labs, if you will. And our teachers, again, all of our teachers should be trained in that, and we have to do a good job as administrators to make sure our staff is supported in doing so. Over the summer, we have what's called recovery programs in algebra and ELA, and that will continue throughout the year because we do have online courses that support learning loss as well. So these things have already been embedded in our programming on a secondary level. We'll continue to do that, and we'll continue to monitor it to see what additional things that we have in play. On top of all of that, we have additional programs that will be rolled out during the year and next summer as well, with some of the funds that we received as a district to support learning loss. So there's plans that are either in place right now or will be implemented during the school year or starting next summer, because this learning loss will not be recovered. We won't recover from this learning loss in 1 year, right? It's being out this long from non-traditional education. It takes time, and I'm glad that Department of Education, whether it's on the federal level and the state level, recognize that and provided us with some resources to support potential learning acceleration during over a couple of years. So we'll get ready. We'll be geared up. We'll continue to train our staff. It's definitely something that's on our mind, and we'll continue to make sure our staff is ready to implement those strategies to support our students.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, how will this? What's the face of this? Is it remedial programs, remedial algebra? ELA, of course, stands for English Language Arts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, is it remedial stuff? Okay. So, going over what they kind of missed last year.
Yeah, I think with every curriculum, there's always a taste at the beginning of the year to touch on previous learning, right? That's just how it's always been. But we'll pick up, and we have to understand during the beginning of the year assessments, which we do every year, right, to understand where our students are at, right? If you will, like a pretest, if you will, right? Some courses will have the ability to be tested and to start strong at the beginning of the year. We'll understand through different data sources that will allow us as educators to see where our students are at, right? And we have to look at that data and apply the pre-work, the proactive work that we've already done. Again, we have courses that support learning loss naturally in the secondary. We'll make sure the appropriate students are taking those courses. We have, again, resources from the Department of Education that recognize that there's a need to support learning loss. And we've already implemented some of those summer programmings that Dr. Ravally already mentioned, throughout the district. Even on the high school level, we have recovery programs. Again, we have programs that will be implemented during the school year and next summer as well, where we can support those students who need to be supported. But at the end of the day, we will identify who those students are through the data that we receive, right? So we can target in on who's need the learning loss. So some students lost a lot of learning during this year, and some students maintain, right? And we need to figure out who's who so we can make sure we can provide them what they need.
Dr. Ravally, is there any indication of, was this more of a problem in the elementary or in the high school?
No, I mean, at the end of the day, it was a very unusual 15 months. There's no question. And high school, elementary schools across the state, across the nation are all experiencing the same thing. But I will say this, in addition to, I hear the term remedial, and I also want to, put a focus on accelerate, right? There's a way to accelerate learning as well. And how you do that is you go back and you look at the kinds of things that may have been missed, or, and we're very standards driven. I mean, there's no mystery to that in New Jersey. And you look at the standards, and that's where Start Strong will help. You look at the standards that, students seem to be struggling with most. And those are the standards that you emphasize and pre-teach as you begin to gear up for a lesson in Algebra 2, for example, because it's probably the most logical thing for me to give an example of. And you have certain foundations in Algebra 1 where a student or group of students may be challenged. And what you're doing is, where you may not have had to spend as much time on those particular standards in Algebra 2, you're gonna accelerate the learning by pre-teaching that, and then boom, jump right into the new material. So it's going to be a challenge for teachers, no doubt, but no greater challenge than what teachers have experienced over the last 15 months. And ours have been fantastic. And if they respond this year as they've responded the last 15 months, we will get this train or bus or whatever you want to say moving forward and moving in the right direction again. I have no doubt. And I know Dr. Logren is working very hard, training staff over the summer on the concept of acceleration. And I know our directors and supervisors are working with principals, and they're working with teachers on identifying where, they anticipated where there may be some struggles and what needs to be pre-taught, what needs to be accelerated, and the whole concept of accelerating. So is it going to be challenging? Absolutely. Is it an elementary issue? Is it a high school issue? It's a pre-K through 12 issue. And it's not only an issue here, it's an issue across the state and across the nation. So we're all working together to make that better.
I've seen reports on the learning gap issue on a national basis that have shown that it struck really significantly in communities of color. Have we found that to be the case in Franklin as well?
I mean, a challenge perhaps in Franklin, but I think one thing we did very well was we made sure, first off, we were back in person, 50-50 hybrid. There were some districts that didn't open until February or March. And then the other thing I think we did very well, and kudos to the folks, I'm certainly not going to take credit for this. We'll give credit where credit is due. Principals, directors, supervisors, especially our folks that are involved with technology. We got families connected, which some communities struggled with that. And the governor made mention of that even today. So our folks had access to the equipment and the internet and the things that they needed in order to keep pace. And we were very diligent about making sure that that we provided that kind of support for our families. And, that meant early on, principals coming in and Dr. Solomon, I'm sure you recall this, us opening our doors and handing out equipment. And we were in various campuses, and we had directors, supervisors, principals, manning our buildings and distributing equipment. We had tech folks figuring out a way to, because we don't have a community-wide internet service, we had folks figuring out how, we could get internet to those folks who didn't have it. And we were, somewhat able to, at least to my understanding, we were able to get a good portion, if not all of our kids connected, which really helped us to battle that piece. I think that's where districts may have struggled.
Right. Sometimes we went door to door. We had to. So,
wow. We have a comment from Ellen Beatty. I just want to read this comment from Ellen Beatty. Some students did really well adapting to remote learning. They were able to focus and learn how to be self-generating. So that's a positive note. Go ahead, Peach.
What I was going to ask Dr. Solomon is the future of the performing arts program in the high school. With masking still in place, I know singing especially, there's a special, there's a concern about the projectile potential of infection that's greater than it is just on the speaking level. And I know even this past year, as things were progressing, that there were programs that were conducted in performance and been recorded for future viewing. Is there a plan right now that any of these programs will be able to resume live?
The one thing I would say, just kind of reiterate what Dr. Ravally said, over these past 15 months, our staff have been remarkable, right? They were creative, innovative to make sure our students had an experience. I know it wasn't like they had pre-COVID, but they had an experience. Mm-hmm. And they really thought outside the box. So, we are always going to be aligned with what guidance whatever guidance that we're given. But so if we have restrictions, I have full confidence in our staff and students to, again, be innovative and think outside the box and to ensure our students have an amazing experience, to show their creativity, to show their talents. Mm-hmm. As you know, this year, they did some remarkable things. We were fortunate enough to do some things outside. Mm-hmm. We still had the ability to do some concerts. We recorded live stream, sold tickets online for people to view online. So we will think outside the box. I know it's not ideal, but we have, at the end of the day, we have to be aligned with whatever restrictions that we have. And I do believe that we have, again, amazing staff. We have amazing students that are willing to do so. So I'm not, it hurts me if they have a lot of restrictions, but, we'll play by the rules and we will do an amazing job like we always do. I have full confidence in the Fine Visual Performing Arts staff to do so.
I can hear a dog in the background there. We have a lot of people watching, and I just want to encourage folks, if you have a comment or a question for one of the two doctors, please type it in the comments, and we will address it. Speaking of which, let me see what we have here. Okay, so I'm going to put one up I'm going to murder your name. Gretchen Dietz Johnson wants to know if will school be a full day or a minimum session?
Was very clear, and he got that very same question today. And as of right now, the expectation from the Department of Education is that it'll be full day, full in-person instruction, starting September, whenever your first day of school is.
Right. And Franklin's first day is when?
I'm looking at my calendar. First day for students. September 9th.
September 9th. Okay. That's
September 9th.
The big day. I just wanted to go back to Dr. Solomon for a second to talk about the learning gap. Do you anticipate after school classes, after school sessions to help kids catch up?
Absolutely. As of today, we are scheduled to go back in person. As of today, we're looking to provide as close to a normal traditional schedule as possible, right? So we definitely want to take advantage of after school opportunities. And I think what the pandemic taught us is the ability to go beyond that, right? With virtual support as well, right? So we want to take advantage of every opportunity that we have available to us. So yes, as of today, longest thing still are trending in coming, starting school in person, we should have after school activities as well.
Okay. Okay. Dr. Ravally, again, going back to what Governor Murphy had to say about, I guess now mandating in school with no option for virtual. Would you rather there be a little wiggle room there? Would you rather there be the opportunity for virtual learning?
Well, we always like flexibility, right? But I'm not so certain that we're going to get it. Perhaps we will. My fear is this, which is more logical. Even if it's not individual, what happens if you have to shut a class down or, shut a wing of a school down or shut one school down? Right now, it's, all or nothing, where we would, that's one of the things that we've spoken to the department about, providing us a little bit of flexibility. Should there be that circumstance where you have an entire class, which, would make sense, right? If you've got 24 kids that need to quarantine for whatever reason it is, and a teacher, then you should be able to put that together. But as of right now, that's not something that is allowable. So yeah, a little bit of flexibility would be nice, but I guess we'll have to wait and see what comes down the road.
I mean, we can just go back to last year when we had a week or 2 weeks where both the girls and the boys basketball teams had to stop playing because one player from each team, happened to be brother and sister, came down with or had symptoms of it or whatever it was. So you would think that there should be either. There's 2,000 kids, 800 kids in Franklin High School.
Did you say 100? No, 2,000. Yeah, a little over 2,000.
Okay, 2,000. If there's even a minor outbreak in Franklin High School, God forbid, next year, that could impact hundreds of kids, and to not have that flexibility to say, okay, you guys stay home and we'll do the virtual, remote learning thing for you. That's got to handcuff the district administrators, I would imagine. No one wants to take the bait, huh?
Oh, no. That's the challenge in front of us.
That's why we ask the questions, and perhaps we'll get a different answer in a few weeks.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you think there's any way to? Being the cynical guy that I am, this is an election year, and I know he doesn't want to give his opponent any opportunity to jump on him for something that may be unpopular with a certain faction of society in New Jersey. But, I mean, do you think that he would put aside political considerations to actually, say, well, yeah, maybe there are times when we have to do remote learning? Do you think that's a possibility?
That question, Mr. Cynical, because at the end of the day, I think what you've heard loud and clear, what we're saying is that if you have that circumstance where you have a whole class that needs to be quarantined or what have you, or even a school in the district that needs to be quarantined, having some flexibility would be certainly a good thing, but it's not here right now. So other than answer it that way, I've got no other answer for you.
I hear you. Okay. TJ, you have anything?
Just for a second to vaccinations. I think I heard you say that it has not been a requirement for the students to be vaccinated. What about the staff and the administration?
Bill, that's a little muddled. I can't hear. I'm sorry.
She wanted to know if there's a requirement for staff to be vaccinated.
No. Again, it would have to be codified.
Okay.
Do you have any statistics as to the percentage of staff who
are? We don't as of today. We did an early, and that was more, and I explained this at a board meeting, that was more for selfish reasons way back when, even though we didn't have a lot of folks coming in, we still wanted to know. We were very fortunate that we had folks that wanted to partner with us and provide opportunities for staff to become vaccinated. But one of the caveats was, tell us how many folks you're going to have. So we kept asking that question. We got to the point where, and mind you, if we talk about total staff, we have a little over 1,100, closer to 1,150. Certified staff, we probably have in the neighborhood of 850, and certified staff are those charged with the responsibility of obviously supervising kids directly. We had about 600 respondents, but that was of our 1,100 folks. And of that, about 88%, if I'm going back by memory, and this was in May, about 88% had already responded that they were fully vaccinated or at least one shot into being vaccinated if it was a 2-shot regimen. And there was a point where we were working on a list of about 750 staff members district-wide, where we were helping to partner. And again, I say we, my assistant, Miss Scott, was working diligently for those that wanted to gain access to a vaccine back when it was more difficult. She was seeking those opportunities and matching folks who wanted to folks that could provide, CVS, the county, the First Baptist Church, Robert Wood Johnson. We had all kinds of partners that were working with us, and she was doing a really wonderful job matching people up. So I think once we finally get to the point where we're going to have a pretty solid number in mid-August, that's what we're hoping for. In mid-August, we'll have a solid number that we can give an overall statistic. I anticipate, if things generalize as I think they might, based on our initial 600 respondents, I think we're probably going to have, and again, sheer guess based on statistics, I'm guessing we're going to be in the pretty high 80s, if not 90%, of most of our staff probably vaccinated. That would be, again, a guess. We'll see what the numbers bear in mid-August, but that's, I think, going to be a pretty good guess.
Have there been any
Do you have
parents objecting to the fact that the child might be being taught by an unvaccinated staff member?
I've not had that, no.
Do you have any idea of
what might be the response?
I got two people talking there.
Sorry, PJ wanted to know what your response might be if someone does object.
What might be my response if somebody does what?
Object to their child being taught by an unvaccinated person.
I guess the principal will have to deal with that one. We've not had it, so I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But we can't mandate somebody be vaccinated. I guess there might be some flexibility. But again, I don't know that we're going to have a lot of folks that are in that situation, because I think we're going to have a very high vaccination rate. So,
and we can't share teachers' personal information as well.
Well, of course, but if a parent says to you, I need to know, or my child isn't coming back to this class.
Well, that I won't be able to give them, unfortunately. Right. I'll be able to give them overall statistics, right? But I'm not going to be able to tell them if Dr. Solomon's vaccinated or not.
Right.
Okay. So that sort of moots the question, doesn't it? Because you won't be able to tell a parent if their kid's teacher has been vaccinated because of HIPAA regulations, right?
Exactly.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There we have it.
That's important for the community to realize.
Yeah. All right. Well, I see by the clock on the wall that we've hit the magic hour of the Franklin Reporter and Advocate News Hour. So I want to thank Dr. John Ravally and Dr. Nicholas Solomon for joining us this afternoon. This was a great conversation. We had a lot of interest in this. We've had a lot of people logging in to watch, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of people watching this on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel as well, which, by the way, we also had streamed to. So this was a really informative. We made a little news today, which I'm always happy about.
Bill, may I take an opportunity to say one more thing? Or
you sure can. I was just about to ask if you wanted to.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I just want folks to know that. So a little bit earlier, I guess maybe now, almost 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, we did host an event similar to this. It was district run. We're going to do something again, probably around mid-August or so, closer to the end of August, closer to the start of school, where we anticipate having even that much more information about what schools will look like, what the processes, protocols, anything that may have changed. In essence, updating the community from what we said 10 days ago to what we said today, which was very similar, by the way, to what we might be saying then based on whatever the guidance is, at that point in time. So our idea is going to be, it's going to be as close as possible to the beginning of the year, but yet give folks a little bit of a heads up in time to be able to understand what to expect. And then also give the principals an opportunity to do something with their schools. So we're going to have another similar event to this, is what I'm saying, but hosted by the district in the latter part of August. And then the principals will do something. Even right before school starts. They may not know it yet, although Dr. Solomon does, because I just told him, but I'm going to be asking the rest of them to do it as well. And the other thing I want to make mention to it here, that, pre-K or a kindergarten, you traditionally have a orientation program. We've extended that this year. It's going to be pre-K, K, and 1, because there's a good chance maybe your kindergarten student wasn't ever in the school. So pre-K, K, and 1, we're doing the same at the middle school level. And I know Dr. Solomon, rather than just having a traditional 9th grade orientation, is going to have a 9th grade and 10th grade orientation for the same reason. So also news. Well, you're getting a lot of news out of me tonight.
Good grief.
If I could just add, just while I'm here, just to kind of put a little public service announcement. Yes, we have 9th grade orientation on August 24th, 10th grade orientation on August 26th, both nights at 6:30. We are inviting the students to come in person. I will be rolling out more details as the weeks, as we lead up to the date. However, that was mentioned at the principal's meet and greet. So I just want to put that out there. In addition to what Dr. Ravally mentioned about principals talking with the parents and staff and students, this past year I did a monthly check-in, and I would like to continue to do that. So it'll be about just a Q&A or just sharing information on how we're doing in the building. So I'll look to continue to do that as the high school principal as well.
And one more thing, and I'll leave you with this, Bill. I thanked our students earlier for their cooperation and their hard work this past year, and what we anticipate their cooperation level will be this year. And I also want to thank our community. I will tell you, and I truly mean this. This has been a really difficult time, but we've had folks that have worked very closely with us. There's certain communities, there's been a lot of, I guess, turmoil over this whole thing. And what I found here is that, our parents, our students, everybody is working together for one thing, and that's to provide our kids with the best experience possible. And I appreciate that, because it's not been an easy time, but there's not been anything that, nothing that we haven't been able to work out. Our staff has been tremendous. Our community has been tremendous. Our kids have been tremendous. I expect the same next year. I would expect nothing different out of the Franklin community. It's been a great place. And, going forward, we'll make this work. We definitely will. And, we need to hear from you. We're not afraid to hear from you. And we've made changes based on what we've heard. So, and that goes for our students too. Our students have had a pretty loud voice, and they have helped us to really craft our plans going forward, and we would encourage them to do that again this year. And, for that, I just want to say thank you while I have everybody's ear.
Great. Very nice. Yes, well, this is a very involved and supportive community. Let's just hold on a second. We have somebody who wants to say something. Tina Blackman-Jackson. This district is doing a great job keeping our students safe while learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Jackson.
Thank you, Mrs. Jackson.
All right. And with that, we will say see you later to our guests, Dr. John Ravally and Dr. Nicholas Solomon. And, we will be hearing from you as the weeks progress, as we get closer and closer to the school bell ringing in September. So thanks again for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Once again,
Thanks for having me.
just want to mention that tonight's program, this very interesting and informative discussion, has been brought to you by Nick DiMeglio, broker, associate realtor with over 30 years of experience. He is trusted. He's knowledgeable. He's with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Fox and Roach Realtors in Princeton Junction. Most of you know Nick Solomon and Nick DiMeglio as one of the strongest voices in our community for our children. He's not only the president of the PTSO in Franklin and Project Graduation, but he's also a very successful and trusted realtor, again, with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Fox and Roach, and they are located, his office is in Princeton Junction, and he may be reached at 732-828-9403, and that's his mobile number, and his office number is 609-799-2022. That's Nicholas DiMeglio for Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Fox and Roach Realtors. And with that said, we definitely want to thank both of our guests tonight. It was such, again, a breath of fresh air to hear both of them enthusiastic, wanting to lead forward, and knowing that there's such a strong community of education and parents and leaders in this community who see the future is so bright with the level of students that we have, and that we are so assured of a bright present as well as a bright future with leaders such as Dr. Ravally and Dr. Solomon in the helm.
Well, I certainly hope the governor decides to do the right thing and allow some form of remote learning just for those situations that I outlined, because if he doesn't, and 2,100 kids, there's more kids in the Franklin High School than some towns have in their entire districts.
Exactly.
So, if there's what?
He's not an illogical person. And
Who, Murphy? Yeah, but he's a politician.
Well, of course. Nonetheless, I think the situation is going to develop as it develops, and that a circumstance will have to develop as it's needed.
Right.
I don't think anyone's going to be foolish enough to not recognize that education must move forward. And remote learning is now not a brand new tool. It's something that people have adapted to and adapted to successfully. So if it becomes necessary as a safety feature, I'm sure it will be implemented.
I don't share your optimism. This is an election year, and he's a politician, and he doesn't want to give Jack Chitterelli anything he can jump on. And
nonetheless, the
call me
issue is
cynical, but
safety.
that's how I am.
The issue is safety, and I think that will always be anyone's primary goal.
Well, sure, but it's not an issue. I mean, the kids will be quarantined, but my point is they won't be able to be learning. As long as they're as long as they feel well enough to click on a computer and maybe participate in class remotely, they should be able to do that if they have to quarantine.
I'm not
because if they don't,
disagreeing.
they've missed 2 weeks of school.
Right, I'm not disagreeing.
And how do you make that up? I'm just saying that we've dealt with Murphy over the past several years. Even when he was running the first time, he came to Franklin a lot because, any politician knows that if you want to win Somerset County, you have to win Franklin Township. That's how important we are, Franklin.
Yes.
We are an important piece of the puzzle for folks who want to win an election.
Yes.
So he is a politician. And we have dealt with so many.
He's the father of 4. He has, I do believe, 2 children in the high school system at the moment. Yeah. And I'm sure, and I'm not defending him. I'm looking at the logic as well as the common sense aspect of this. If the numbers continue to increase, it would be a political suicide for him to not adjust this policy.
We would hope so.
Political yes or political no. I think it's going to run as it's meant to run. This is not political philosophy and safety. Yeah.
And the numbers in Franklin Township, and hopefully we're going to be doing a news hour with some folks who can talk about the COVID numbers as they are now in Franklin and in the region. Hopefully within a week or so, we'll have that news out for you folks. But the numbers are, I mean, the Township Council is meeting tomorrow to rescind a resolution they passed 2 weeks ago, I think it was.
Exactly.
To go back and
political body.
Yeah, well, it helps that our town is being led by a mayor who's a doctor who's incredibly conservative, as you know. But they're going to be considering, and they're probably going to pass a resolution to rescind the resolution they passed a couple of weeks ago to return to in-person learning and in-person meetings next month. Because
errs on the side of caution.
Sure, but let me finish. Because the day before they passed that resolution, the average infection rate in Franklin Township was 0.4 a day. Less than one person a day was getting infected.
Over 11.
Oh, that's about 8. It's about 7 or 8. And we just had 24 over the past 3 days. So 8 of the past 3 days. 8 a day. So, and it was I think 7 a day last week sometime. So, and we've just been getting more and more. So, I mean,
I applaud his conservative approach on this level.
Oh, I do too. But that's just buttresses.
I think it's wise.
That just buttresses my concern that I'm not saying that they're being smart about it. I think that buttresses my concern that if Murphy is adamant about no virtual learning, I think kids are going to suffer.
Again, not disagreeing, and I think on a political level, he will do what is best for his state on that level. And if the numbers are increasing and there's any danger, it would just be a political sword in his own side to not offer that as a viable alternative.
I guess. But we'll see. I guess we'll see. I think within a couple of weeks, I think he's got to change his mind. Because, as Dr. Fauci once said, the numbers are going the wrong way. Oh, I'm probably going to get nailed for quoting Dr. Fauci now. Here we are. Anyway.
He is a science figure, and he's portable.
So there we have it. So, Franklin, thanks for tuning in. We still have a pretty significant number of people who stuck around.
Well, then they may want to hear how they can subscribe to the Franklin Reporter and Advocate.
Absolutely.
It's only independent news source.
10 cents a day, Franklin. And the way you do that is you go to Franklin. Well, let me put it up here. What I do with it? There it is. FranklinReporter.com and a little box. Oh, and Cody says yes. By all means, do that. Little box will pop up where you can type in your email address and you can follow the prompts, which will let you sign up to support Franklin Township's only independent local news source. I just had a very loud ding in my ear.
A few of them.
And that's just one way you can support us. The other way to support the Franklin Reporter is by advertising. And you would to advertise with us, you would contact PJ Parker at ads@franklinreporter.com.
Or Cody Parker.
Or Cody Parker, who must be heard. Good gosh.
Oh my God.
If you have a news tip or you want to talk about a story or complain about something, just email me, editor@franklinreporter.com. You can follow us on Twitter. We are at Franklin Editor. You can, of course, follow us on Facebook, which is where we are now. We also have the YouTube channel, which if you're watching on YouTube, you know about. And we also have an Insta, Franklin_reporter_and_advocate. We are looking into other forms of social media to entice people to join us and support us. We just haven't quite figured out which ones.
Well, here, we can throw that out to the community right now. Franklin, do you want to see the Franklin Reporter and Advocate on TikTok?
TikTok.
Please let us know. It's a burning question.
Do you want to see me dance? Do you want to see PJ dance on TikTok while we're delivering the headlines? Ain't going to see me dance. All right.
Yes, I'm sure everybody would like to see you dance.
Nobody wants to see me dance. Anyway,
Well, in addition to the Franklin Reporter and Advocate, your 24/7 news site, we also have our daily morning report, and you can sign up for that right on the front page of the Franklin Reporter and Advocate. There's no charge to receive your daily informational about everything that's happened the night before, as recently as the night before's news. And that's again Franklin Reporter and Advocate, or franklinreporter.com. To register for that. We also have our monthly newspaper, which is called the Monthly Digest, in your mailbox or in several drop-off locations throughout the community, including Stop and Shop, ShopRite, Wawa, 7-Eleven, the municipal building, the senior center, so many other locations in the community. You can pick up an actual newspaper for those of you who like to turn a page. And that's the synopsis of the last month's top stories, where you can also see pictures of your kids and your kids' friends and parents. And it's fun for us to do that. Then, of course, there's also the Franklin Reporter and Advocate News Hour, which is what you've been watching now. And we frequently do live streams, as you know, within our community to promote events, to assist in fundraising, just to highlight what's good, what's excellent, what's happening, and how you can be a bigger part of your Franklin Township community. So any of those available to you on the advertising side, sponsorships are available. Again, please contact me directly at 732-820-0840 if you'd like to discuss any of those opportunities, or email ads@franklinreporter.com. Any breaking news, please contact Bill Bowman at editor@franklinreporter.com. And so moving forward, we had a great time tonight. It's always a pleasure to introduce and watch stories unfold with people we have such great respect for in our community. And Dr. Nick Solomon, who is a brand new Franklin High School principal and are so active in the process, to School Superintendent Dr. Ravally. And we thank them both.
yes, we do. They're always very, very available to us, and we appreciate that. All right, Franklin, that's going to do it for now for this edition of the News Hour. Usual, until we meet again, Franklin, stay safe. PJ, say that thing that you always do.
That thing I always say. This is PJ Parker of the Franklin Reporter, and I was just saying, we'll be back.